more effectively and hopefully soon enough expose who are and what are the real obstacles to a just and lasting settlement of the conflict. A settlement which will serve the interests of Palestinians and Israelis. A settlement based on fundamental principles of international law. So I remain optimistic, and I think there is good reason to be optimistic. That if we learn the record, clarify the issues, show that we are committed to a reasonable and just settlement of the conflict, reasonable and just for all sides, if we can demonstrate that, then I think that there's a reasonable chance that we can achieve our goal and move on to other problems plaguing humankind. Thank you. Fidel Castro. However, the audience was extremely respectful and decent, bar none. And so my usual rule is to give dissenters the first opportunity to speak. You endured me with respect, even though for some of you what I had to say might have been exasperating. So I would hope that those who want to register their dissent in the form of a statement or a question to be the first ones to go to the microphone.
Thank you for the invitation. You have bemoaned the indiscriminate attacks against civilian populations as being terrorist, and yet, according to your own website, tonight you have already been aired on El-Manar and you'll be aired again on Sunday. As well, in the past you have said, I believe in a letter to Michael Young, that we should show solidarity with Hezbollah. Seeing as Hezbollah indiscriminately fires rockets onto Israel, how do you reconcile this disturbing inconsistency?
Okay, that's a reasonable question, and so I'd be happy to look at it. Number one, remember that I was looking at everything when I went through the question of Israel and the Palestinians. I was looking at it relatively. I kept saying relatively, 3 to 4 to 1, relatively 800 children to 100 children. I was looking at the numbers relatively and asking you to use your common sense about who is or who has the worst record in the conflict. So let's just first look at the numbers, and then I'm going to go through the international law. And you can stay by the microphone. I'm happy to engage in give you a right of reply. I know it's sometimes frustrating when I get the last word. So let's look at the record. Let's first look at the July 2006 war, the one that's freshest in people's minds. The record shows as follows. Nobody disputes it except for some Israeli spokespersons, but I'll take the human rights organizations. During the war, Israel killed approximately 1,200 Lebanese, of whom 1,000 were civilians, about 80% civilians. Hezbollah killed 160 Israelis, the numbers are exact, 160 Israelis, of whom 25% were civilians. So it's Israel's killing 80% civilians versus Hezbollah's killing 25% civilians. In absolute numbers, it's 1,000 Lebanese killed, civilians killed, versus 40 Israelis killed. That's one part of the record. Let's take the question of cluster bombs. According to Human Rights Watch, Hezbollah fired 4,000 cluster bomblets on Israel, clearly illegal under international law. According to the same Human Rights Watch report, Israel dropped 4 million cluster bomblets on Lebanon. That's the comparative record. Now, let's look at the legal record. The legal record shows as follows, and there are parts where I don't agree with Human Rights Watch. I've written a long study of it, and I'm happy to send it to you if you're interested. I'll go through the record. The record shows that Hezbollah has consistently targeted military personnel, combatants. Allow me to finish, and then you can save your guffaws for the beer after. In fact, Israel has acknowledged, Rabin himself acknowledged in I think it was 92, but you can, I'll be happy to send the record, that Hezbollah targets civilians after Israel has targeted Lebanese civilians. Now, under international law, and there may be some international law specialists in the room, feel free to correct me, that's technically called belligerent reprisals. Namely, if you target our civilians, we're going to target yours until you stop. The technical term is belligerent reprisals. If you check the International Committee on the Red Cross, the ICRC, it's the standard handbook on humanitarian law. It states that there is a large number of countries which accept the principle that belligerent reprisals are illegal. That is, you can never target civilians. However, it says that it is not a customary rule of international law. In fact, the official position of the United States and the UK, the official position of both the US and the UK, is that belligerent reprisals are legal. You target our civilians, we're going to target yours until you stop. In my opinion, and I don't want to be a hypocrite on this particular matter, I could see the argument of Hezbollah. I think Israel has to stop treating Lebanon and the Arab world as a shooting range. It has to stop. I deeply regret the death of any civilian life. I do. But if Nasrallah the head of Hezbollah makes the argument that in fact, when it has resorted to the belligerent reprisals, Israel has stopped targeting the Lebanese civilians, I have to say on the principle of every life is equal, if it does put a stop to targeting of those Lebanese civilians, I can see an argument for it. I can also see the argument for the other side. But on the whole, looking at the picture in total, I think the Hezbollah record is pretty good. I know. You see, people laugh. People laugh. One reason they laugh is because people don't look at the record. It's true. Hezbollah is officially on the terrorist list. Just like when I was growing up, the 1960s and 70s, the African National Congress was officially on our own terrorist list. Some people want to forget Nelson Mandela's